let's say you watched House of the Dragon about a year and a half ago. You know season 2 is coming on June 16th, 2024, but you don't really want to go through and read the book. Unlike me, you have a life and you don't have the time to go rewatch everything, so you need a relatively quick recap of what happened in season 1. If that's you, welcome. If you're not new around here, welcome back to my channel. My name is Miscellaneous Gab, and today we're going to be recapping House of the Dragon season 1 in order to get ready for season 2. With me today, I have a chalice of wine because I feel like in all things Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, you really need to be sipping red wine anytime there's any kind of serious discussion going on. Grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's get started. So we're going to go episode by episode. We're going to talk about the most important things. This is no spoilers for the book. It's no spoilers for season 2. I have not read the books and I don't really want to. This is not going to get super deep into the lore, into the world. It's not here to confuse you. It's just here to update you. So in episode 1, we had the Heirs of the Dragon. Now this episode had a tournament, a horrific childbirth, and the introduction to a season-long prophecy. The big theme of this episode in both the past and the present is succession. Who will succeed the throne? To address this, we have a flashback from the very beginning, a flashback to the Harrenhal Council, which takes place about 300 and some change years before Game of Thrones as we know it began. In this, King Jaehaerys, despite being a good king, he had a very messy succession. He did not have a direct male heir to succeed him on the throne. So they had this big council. They talked about it. The two contenders were Rhaenys, who was the daughter of Aemon, his firstborn son, who unfortunately got killed, as well as Viserys, who was the son of Balon. And as you know, they picked the man. Rhaenys kind of got shafted a little bit, you could say, in this deal. So now we have present day. We have Princess Rhaenyra, who is the daughter of Daddy Viserys. She's riding her dragons through the city. We get the vibe that she's a bit rebellious, a bit of an Arya figure, a bit of a tomboy. We meet her mom, Aemma Arryn, who is unfortunately very pregnant after many miscarriages. Her husband, Viserys, is obsessed with her having a male so that he can have a male heir. We also meet members of the High Council. These people are all going to be important as the season goes on. We meet that rat Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King. We meet Lionel Strong, who is currently the Master of Laws. We also meet the Grand Maester, who's just always up to something. Lyman Beesbury, Master of Coin, and Corlys Velaryon, one of my personal favorite characters, who is the Master of Ships. Drop a comment below and let me know which one you would be the master of. What would be your place in the small council? Let's get going. Let's get creative here. During this time, we learned kind of about the politics of the time. We learned about the triarchy. There's pirates attacking on the stepstones. There's a crab guy. It's kind of a backstory. It's kind of a B plot, but it's important to know. Then we meet Daddy Daemon. We meet freaking Daemon. He is such a little rabble rouser. He is sitting on the throne. He's giving his niece a necklace. He's being creepy. He's being suave. He's being the internet's favorite creepy uncle. He is currently in line to the throne unless his brother has a son. Right now, other than just being kind of a rabble rouser, he is currently commanding the Gold Cloaks. They're like his own little personal army. At the end of the episode, we see a pretty brutal rampage where they're going around the city causing terror. I mean, obviously, like, I think they're gelding bad guys, but it's clear that Daemon is very brutal. Daemon misbehaves because he wants his brother to love him. Daemon, as we learn throughout this season, is constantly compensating for something. He kind of has two ways of dealing with his problems, and that's sex and violence. In episode 1, we also meet Alicent Hightower. She's kind of like the Sansa to Rhaenyra's Arya. Alicent wants to be a proper lady. At this time, we also have to know that King Viserys has cut himself from sitting on the throne, which, like, who thought that the throne would be comfortable? Apparently, Aegon the Conqueror made it deliberately so that kings would use power wisely. Episode 1 is important to get a little bit of the conflicts going on. We know that Otto Hightower does not like Daemon. Daemon makes it his job to annoy Otto Hightower. There's a tournament, of course. Everyone is always just kind of killing each other. This is where we meet Criston Cole. We don't really know who he is. We just know that he's relatively hot. He comes from an independent kingdom. He's kind of the underdog, and he defeats Prince Daemon. So there's an immediate dislike, there's an immediate rivalry there between the two. Unfortunately, Queen Aemma dies in childbirth. There's a really tough decision that Viserys has to make, which By the way, guys, he made the decision to save the baby. The mom was going to die anyway. Let's just get that under control. Let's just get that through our heads. By the end of this episode, the big thing is that Viserys, who is fraught with guilt, with shame, with horrid feelings. He truly loved his wife, Emma. He feels awful for putting her through so many pregnancies that wrecked her mind, body, and soul. He decides to make his daughter, Rhaenyra, the heir to his throne, which is a super big deal. Let's talk episode 2. Episode 2 is called The Rogue Prince. If you don't know who that is referring to, that is Daemon. Basically, what we need to know about episode 2 is it's full of creepy marriage proposals and creepy crab men. In this episode, we hear about Kragus Crabfeeder, the current threat to Westeros. He wears a creepy mask. He feeds his enemies to the crabs. Maybe he has grayscale. We don't know. We don't know much about him. There's some upset going on politically between Viserys, Otto, and Corlys Velaryon, who wants to attack. Viserys does not want to attack the Triarchy, even though they are a huge threat to the region. Rhaenyra, who is now kind of the cupbearer at these meetings, recommends dragon riders. Everyone is talking back to the king. What you really need to know is that no one really, unfortunately, respects Daddy Viserys. Someone from the Kingsguard dies, so it is Rhaenyra's job to pick her new sworn protector. She chooses the hot one, Criston Cole. She does probably choose him because she finds him attractive, but she actually is smart here in wanting to choose the guard with the actual battle experience, a tried and tested protector, a warrior, rather than someone who just comes from one of the most important houses. In this episode, Viserys and Alicent start hanging out. It's weird. Is it an innocent friendship? Is it creepy? This is encouraged by Otto Hightower, who is just a smelly little rat. Otto be scheming. Otto is scheming at all times, and he's even pimping out his own daughter to carry through with his plans. Alicent isn't a fan of this scheming, or maybe she's uncomfortable. She's picking at her fingernails. She's anxious, and she also feels really uncomfortable keeping it from Rhaenyra, who is her best friend. During this time, Viserys gets a marriage proposal because people want him to get married again. They want him to move on. They want him to have a son. So he gets propositioned from his cousin Rhaenys and Lord Corlys Velaryon, who basically say that they should unite their houses, the last true dragon riding families left, and unite them with their young daughter, who is a literal baby. Rhaenyra is like trying not to puke in her mouth, but is like, okay. Viserys doesn't want to marry a 12-year-old. He'd rather marry a 14-year-old. In this episode, we see Viserys's hand is worse. We have this really disgusting scene where maggots are eating his flesh. We know it's not a good omen. It also signals that the literal hand of the king is corrupted. Otto, we're looking at you, boy. Meanwhile, Rhaenys and Rhaenyra have a chat about the order of things. She's a bit jealous of Rhaenyra because she's seeing Rhaenyra have the actual shot at ruling, which she was always the queen who never was. This episode is called The Rogue Prince. This means Daemon is just effing shit up. He's back at Dragonstone. He proclaims himself heir to the Iron Throne, and he's going to marry his lady of the night, Mysaria. He steals dragon eggs that were supposed to be the dead babies. He also says Mysaria is pregnant when he has a wife, so he's committing treason, blasphemy, infidelity. He's just pushing people's buttons. Otto shows up, but then Rhaenyra shows up in a boss move and is like, Daemon, give me this egg. Kill me now if you're gonna kill me, and goodbye. Viserys is mad that his daughter just kind of hopped off to Dragonstone and started inserting herself into the political dynamics, but homegirl gets shit done. The end of the episode is drama, okay? Viserys announces that he's going to marry Alicent, and Rhaenyra, she is throttled. She is choked. She was kind of resigned to the fact that, okay, my dad's marrying like a kid who's younger than me. It's gross. It's weird. But she has fire on the mind when she sees that he is marrying her best friend. Alicent is not a girl's girl. The episode also ends with Daemon and Corlys bonding over being second sons. Daemon kind of has this boss moment where he's like, look, I can talk shit about my family and my brother, but you can't. So get my brother's name out your fucking mouth.
Keep my wife's name out your
Now, as we enter episode 3, we enter the first of 3 time jumps, okay? So episode 3 is called The Second of His Name, which is in regards to Aegon, the baby. Viserys, it's been 3 years since they got married. They've been hard at work. They have one baby and there's a second on the way. They're on the way to a royal hunt with a very pregnant Alicent and a very moody and pissed off Rhaenyra, who has been holding a grudge for 3 years. She's pissed. She's like not happy about it. Whereas Alicent seems to be really stepping into her role as queen. Rhaenyra seems to be more of a grumpy teenager, kind of, it's giving tantrums. Aegon's birth is a bit prickly for Rhaenyra in general because people are like, oh, hey, there's a boy now. So can we forget maybe about the whole fact that we said we'd put Rhaenyra on the throne? Meanwhile, that little rat Otto is still stirring the pot. He's eager now because it's his grandson, so he's eager to get his grandson on the throne. He also propositions for Rhaenyra to marry baby Aegon. Viserys is aghast. He's so grossed out. He's like, ooh, no, God, they're half brother and sister. He's really going to eat his words on that in a few episodes. During the hunt, we meet a few new political players. We meet Jason Lannister, who's all trying to flirt with Rhaenyra about how big his castle is. This is the first time we see Larys motherfucking Strong, who is sitting with the ladies and like eating. He's like eating a cookie. He's gossiping with the girls. He is spilling the tea. Here I was thinking he was, he's just a character, right? He's just spilling the tea with the ladies. I was wrong. Boy, was I wrong. All we have to know is that Rhaenyra stalks off. She and Kristen Cole kill a boar. We also see the white hart appear to Rhaenyra, who lets it go. The symbolism, whatever prophecy you can call it, maybe she is the better ruler. Rhaenyra, the kind of TLDR of this episode is that Rhaenyra needs to get married. Viserys does not want to marry her off to her own half-brother because apparently that's weird. At the end of the episode, we have a very angry Daemon. He's fighting in the Stepstones. He's off doing his thing again. He's really mad because a messenger comes and tells him that his brother will be sending reinforcements. His whole thing is like, I can do it myself. I don't want no help. Goodbye. And he brutally kills the messenger. And then he holds up a white flag and does the ultimate battle faux and uses the white flag as a tactic to just murder everyone and just kill everyone. So the thing we have to learn about Daemon is he fights dirty. He's a dirty fighter. He's emotional. He's rash, but we love him. We love Daemon. Do you love Daemon? We love Daemon. Episode 4. Episode 4, we have King of the Narrow Sea. This is where things get steamy. Things are dramatic. This is where consequences are real. The episode begins with Rhaenyra in Storm's End. She has her hot right-hand man next to her, Sir Kristen Cole, after they bonded last episode. She's bored. She thinks that marriage is enslavement. She is a bit scarred about marriage because of what she saw her mother go through, aka die. She has lines of single men fighting over her, literally murdering each other over her, and she is an unbothered queen. Daemon is back. So Daemon has returned from the Stepstones. He's moody, he's edgy, he's there to fuck shit up again. Now we have Rhaenyra and Alicent starting to make up. There's a moment of friendship and understanding. Rhaenyra has a meeting with Daemon. She talks about how she doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want to be trapped or die in childbirth. And Daemon's whole thing is that whether you're a man or a woman, you can still have sex, and sex isn't about duty, and sex can be fun. So he takes Rhaenyra for a night on the town. She is thrilled. She is out of her mind thrilled to see what poor and normal people do. She loves the danger. She loves the excitement, and things get a little crazy. Now, this is one of my favorite scenes in the whole season 1, and not necessarily because I approve of uncle and niece insect related relationships, but more because it is shot so well. Dee takes R into a sex club, showing her that sex is not just about duty, it can be pleasurable. And in the meantime, our girl Alicent is back at the castle, giving her crusty ass husband a sponge bath and feeling disgusted. This is such an important contrast between Alicent, who is queenly, she is dutiful, she is doing what the men in her life have always told her to do, and Rhaenyra, who's always been a bit rogue, who has followed her fancies, who has wanted to live scene like of Daemon and Rhaenyra. It is like I felt it, like I was there. Daemon kind of gets things hot and heavy. He starts kissing his niece and is a bit surprised to see that his niece is rather into it. She's holding her own. See, I think Damon is all about kind of the power and the control. And then when he sees, oh, my child of a niece, she's serving back to me what I am serving her, he gets kind of weirded out. But homegirl Rhaenyra is horny. She has felt things for the first time. She is a bit confused about why Damon has left her, but she goes back, and who does she see? Sir Criston Cole. She sees him and she's like, I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it, come into my room. It takes about 75 hours to get his armor off, but it happens. It's awkward, it's weird, it's not one of those hot, steamy sex scenes you see. So at this time, this is kind of where the spy networks come into effect. We see that Otto Hightower has spies all around. We see that Missaria is no longer Damon's girl, but she is now the White Worm. She is kind of Varys style spy master. By the way, I expect to see more of her. What is her accent? And who greenlit this accent? It's like giving Calypso from Pirates of the Caribbean.
I've left that life behind.
We don't really know, kind of, was this Damon's plan for Otto to find out? We don't know. Otto tells Viserys. Viserys is like, get my daughter's name out your mouth. Meanwhile, Alicent is dialed in. She's cued in. She confronts Rhaenyra. She asks Rhaenyra if she fucked Daemon. Rhaenyra flat out lies in front of the weirwood trees, no less. So this is kind of like a bit about Rhaenyra's character, is that she's willing to flat out lie to her best friend. And she's like, I never touched Daemon, which is wrong. She never had sex with Daemon, but she did get a little, and she actually banged Criston Cole. Meanwhile, Daemon asks Viserys if he can marry Rhaenyra. Viserys freaks out and says no and exiles Daemon again. So Daemon is back and he's gone, and he's back and he's gone, and now he's gone again. And then really the TLDR of this episode is we're like, okay, you know what? Enough playing around, Rhaenyra. You done fucked up. You had the ability to choose who you wanted to marry, and now that privilege is gone. So you will be marrying your cousin, your second cousin, Laenor Velaryon. Rhaenyra agrees. She's like, yeah, I will marry him, only if you remove Otto as your hand, because clearly he hates me, so he needs to go. Viserys agrees and sends Otto bye-bye. The episode ends with the Maester bringing Rhaenyra a plan B, a moon tea, if you will, to abort the pregnancy if needed. So now we have episode 5. There's a wedding. And whenever there's a wedding in the Game of Thrones universe, you have drama, you have politics, and you have a murder. This is the episode where Alicent is no more Mrs. Nice Queen. The episode begins and we meet Rhea Royce, who's a total badass. She's actually Damon's wife. She lives in the Vale. And so he goes to visit her and ends up murdering her? Question mark. Did he plan to kill her, or did he take advantage of an opportunity? We don't know. Let me know in the comments. Otto is on his way out. He's pouty. He's angry. He gives Alicent a warning, basically saying like, hey, Rhaenyra will kill your children because she wants to be on the throne. So just watch out. That girl's not your friend. So just keep an eye out for her. This is also the episode where Larys Strong rears his little ugly, scrappy little crusty ass grease ball hair head. He comes in to stir the pot. He tells Alicent about the tea and agrees to be her ally. And I know a lot of people compare Larys Strong to like Littlefinger because they always have some sort of agenda at play. At least Littlefinger has charm, okay? Larys is just a creep. We don't know how he knows everything, but he just does. There's a lot of fan theories out there. I said I wouldn't get too into lore, but there are a lot of fan theories out there about him being a green seer or some sort of animargus. That's the wrong universe. That's Harry Potter. Viserys and Rhaenyra go to Driftmark to meet her betrothed, her second cousin. Lionel Strong is now the new Hand of the King. Viserys is unwell. Let's just put it that way. They're on the ship to go to Driftmark, and I just wonder why they didn't take a dragon Uber to Driftmark, because Viserys is not doing well on the ship. Lionel Strong is the new Hand of the King, and talk about inheriting a shitstorm. Poor man. He's like the guy who, it's his first day on the job. You know when you have your first day on the job and you're like, what did I just walk into? He has a rogue, horny princess, a psycho, power-hungry prince, and a king that's literally falling apart. We get to Driftmark and we see kind of a little bit of disrespect coming from Corlys. He's still a little burnt that Viserys didn't accept his original marriage proposal to marry his daughter, and Corlys really feels like he has the upper hand. We meet Laenor, who is chill. He's nice. He's her cousin, which is better than her uncle. And the only problem is that Laenor is just not into girls or duck or goose or whatever it is. Rhaenyra and Laenor, they kind of work out a little arrangement. They're like, it's fine. We'll do what we need to do. And then we'll both have our little side dishes as we prefer them. Anyway, on their way back in a complete incel move, Criston, who is very beaten up about what he has done, about the sin he has committed, he basically asked Rhaenyra to leave with him, to go to the east so that they can be together and like eat clementines and oranges. His honor has been tainted and driving him crazy. Rhaenyra appreciates his gesture, but basically is like I'm destined for great things, so that's not gonna happen. And Criston takes a huge hit. Man is on edge. Because of Larys's influence, Alicent cannot get this out of her head. She needs to know what happened between Rhaenyra and Daemon, so she calls Criston Cole to question him. Immediately, Kristin's like, yeah, I did it. I had sex with Rhaenyra. I did it. I'm so sorry. And she's like, oh. Anyway, Alicent is more alone than ever. She decides she's so shocked that she doesn't do anything against Criston, which kind of leads him to sink deeper into despair. He was fully prepared to DIE. The wedding between Rhaenyra and Laenor commences. It's supposed to be this grand thing, but at the first event, people arrive, sides are taken. The Hightowers show up. They tell Alicent that they are in full support of her. Alicent arrives late, disrespectfully, and wearing green. She's never not in green after this moment. Laenor's boyfriend, Joffrey, kind of catches a vibe from Criston Cole and realizes that Criston Cole is definitely Rhaenyra's lover. He kind of goes and is like, we don't know if it's a threat or we don't know if it's camaraderie. If he's like, hey, we're both kind of the side piece of the royalty here, like, let's be friends. Criston Cole just doesn't take it well. So he basically bashes Joffrey's head in and murders him, and everything goes to shit. Anyway, Rhaenyra and Daemon have this just weird moment in the crowd where they're kind of reconnecting after this time. They're just being a bit inappropriate and disrespectful to the guests. I'm team black, by the way. I am. But those two have a knack for just being disrespectful. Episode 6 is called The Princess and the Queen. This is the 10 years later flash forward. This is the thing that really divided people. Was Rhaenyra, new actress. She has 3 kids, Jacaerys, Jake, Lucerys, Luke, and the newest Joffrey, which she is actively giving birth to in this episode. Father of all 3 of these children is allegedly Laenor Velaryon, yet none of them really look like him at all. Alicent has 3 kids, Aegon, who is gross, Helena, who is weird, and Aemond, who is a bit bullied. Daemon, meanwhile, has married Laena, Laenor's younger sister, and they have 2 kids called Baela and Rhaena. The episode begins with a horrifically realistic birth, followed by a horrific walk of shame over to Alicent. So Alicent wants to, of course, see the baby as soon as it pops out, to inspect, see the color of its skin, see if it looks anything like its father. According to Alicent, Rhaenyra is just basically flaunting her blasphemy in the face of everyone at court. Meanwhile, Criston is still here. He's still out and about. He suffered absolutely no consequences for murdering Joffrey. Poor Laenor has to face this man every day, pretty much. Criston is Alicent's right-hand man. He is her homie. They both are wearing these cloaks of false righteousness. Viserys is somehow still alive, but he is looking worse than ever. He's delightfully and willfully ignorant to what's going on for his eyes. We learn that the father of Rhaenyra's children is Harwin Strong. Alicent is more of a bitch than ever. We see the kids with all their dragons. Aemond is kind of bullied by both sides of the kids. The 3 Targaryen children are the aunts and uncles of the other kids, but they all kind of function as cousins. We all kind of pick on some people. Aemon doesn't have a dragon, so he's picked on. The biggest thing to know about this episode is the tension is there. Okay, you can cut the tension with a knife. Alicent believes that she's doing the right thing. Criston has gone full incel on Rhaenyra. Dude gets rejected once and holds it against her for 10 years. Larys is still a fucking creep. Alicent talks about how she wishes her father would come back. And so Larys decides to murder his brother and father. His brother being the lover of Rhaenyra, and his father being the Hand of the King. We want to get rid of the Hand of the King, who's also my father. So let's just K him. Let's just K-word him. I hated this. I hated everything about this. This was so sad. We barely got to see Harwin meet his new kid and the duty and how he's just been in the background this whole time, raising those kids, looking after them. Oh God, I could cry. Fucking Laris decides to take out the tongues of a couple prisoners because if they don't have tongues, they can't talk. But then he slaps their logo on their chest. This man is sick. He's sick. He has no morals. He has no values. Alicent is horrified. Just to put a cherry on top of a really intense episode, Daemon, who is once again, you know, like we said, exiled, he's gone. He's always going, coming and going. He is in Pentos. He's been in the East with his wife Laena. They've had 2 kids, and then Laena is pretty much dying in childbirth, and she does not want to be a victim. She wants to die a dragon rider's death, so she lets her dragon incinerate her. R.I.P. Laena. Episode 7 is called Driftmark, and it's one of the juicier episodes. It's one of my favorite episodes. We have kids fighting, we have a funeral, we have weddings. So we go to Driftmark for Laena's funeral. Everyone goes there. There is a feud brewing between Corlys and his brother Vaemond. That's because everyone kind of knows but not knows that all the kids are bastards. Vaemond doesn't want Luke, who would be natural successor of Driftmark. Rhaenyra's children are sad because they basically just like lost their father. And even if they're not ready to accept that he was their father, they can at least accept that he was someone very close to them and now he's dead. Poor Rhaenyra is probably distraught and she can't really show that. And, you know, we actually see the kids wanting to comfort each other. And the kids are just kids, but they're picking up on that tension from their parents. And we see that eventually they inherit that tension from their parents and that it can't be contained. Meanwhile, Aegon and Helen, brother and sister, Alicent's children, married each other. Weird, given how disgusted Viserys was mere episodes ago about Rhaenyra marrying her half-brother. I didn't really understand why they didn't ally themselves with powerful houses. I actually think that would solidify Aegon's potential claim to the throne a bit more. Everyone is depressed and miserable and sad in this episode except the rat Otto Hightower, who is smarmy. He's Hand of the King again. Rhaenyra and Daemon reconnect for the first time in a decade and sparks are flying. They go out and have segs on the beach. They have segs on the beach. Their give a fucks are on vacation perpetually with these two. You know, they're getting sandy. They're getting hot and heavy at the funeral of Daemon's wife. So not the best look for them, TBH. As they're making hanky-panky on the beach, little Aemond, who doesn't have a dragon, kind of does like a Hail Mary. He goes and snatches up the most powerful dragon in the world, an OG dragon from conquering Westeros, Miss Vhagar. It works wonderfully. So the little kid who was taunted with pigs and never had a dragon now gets the biggest, baddest MC out there. But when he gets back, all the kids are pissed, especially Laena's daughters. Rhaena was supposed to claim her. Fight ensues. It's an all-out brawl. Things are getting crazy. Aemond's face ends up getting slashed by Luke, who causes Aemond to lose his eye. Everyone is horrified. There's blood everywhere. The mothers are going crazy. Aemond is honestly not too bothered by it because he's like, well, you know, I got the best dragon in the world, so an eye isn't really too much of a payment for that. Everyone is pissed. There's this huge fiasco in the middle of the night. Daemon is kind of unbothered. He's just like leaning there and watching everything implode. Viserys is angry and literally has no control over the situation or anything ever. Things boil up. Alicent finds that it's not sufficient. She believes that Luke should kind of give an eye for an eye, literally. Viserys says no, and then Alicent explodes and comes at Rhaenyra with a knife, cutting her on the forearm. We see the problem. The girl problems here are rooted in jealousy. Alicent has always been jealous of Rhaenyra because Rhaenyra has been able to do what she wants while she's banging her old crusty husband. Both of these girls need girlfriends. They need to become girls. Last thing you need to know about episode 7 is that Laenor decides he wants out. He's pretty distraught about his sister's death. So they concoct a plan where where Laenor can escape with his lover, fake his death, go to the east, and meanwhile that frees up Rhaenyra to be able to marry and mate with her uncle Daemon, which she does very quickly after. Okay, now we have episode 8. It's called The Lord of the Tides. This is the last time jump. There's about a 6-year time jump here. So all the actors stay the same except the kids. The kids have all new actors. What you need to know about this episode is that Rhaenyra and her family have all been in Dragonstone. Rhaenyra has had 2 additional children, 2 twins, and she is pregnant with her 6th child. Viserys, aka the Phantom of the Opera, is now on death's doorstep. Corlys, who has been fighting in the Stepstones because apparently killing Kragus Crabfeeder wasn't enough. Corlys is wounded and might die, which kind of leads to another succession question: who will inherit Driftmark? Vaemond is still pissed. He believes that he should inherit it. Rhaenys wants her granddaughter Baela to inherit it, and then Corlys wants Luke to inherit it. This succession question brings the family together once again, and everyone heads over to King's Landing. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra gets a shit welcome as she's around King's Landing. She sees that a lot of the Targaryen banners have been taken down. Alicent is very religious now, so everything is kind of like the 7. It's all very religious. It's all very drab. Rhaenyra's new kids are called Aegon and Viserys, so now we have 2 Aegons that are both named after the OG Aegon the Conqueror. We also learned that Aegon, Alicent's son, is a grapist and a creep. Despite her religious leanings, she is kind of covering up her son's graping activity. We also see Eye Patch Aemond, who has gotten jacked, and clearly hasn't forgiven Luke about the eye slice. Vaemond comes through demanding his claim to Driftmark. Otto is the one reviewing the case, sitting on the Iron Throne. They're keeping Viserys hopped up on milk of the poppy. Daddy Viserys comes through, okay, in a beautiful performance to support his daughter. I could cry. He hobbles up to the throne, the Iron Throne, which pretty much is the thing that killed him. His crown falls off, and Daemon, who has always been a little shit, helps him put the crown back on. I could cry. Meanwhile, Vaemond calls the kids bastards, and Daemon has none of that. Literally slices him in half. R.I.P. After that, the family has a wild dinner. Viserys kind of urges the family to make peace for him. Alicent and Rhaenyra have a moment where they thank each other, and we seem to think that they're going to be reconnecting again, that they've remembered maybe their love. This time, the anger, the tension has been passed on to the kids. Luke laughs at the fact that a roast pig is served, and then Aemond ends up giving a speech where he calls the kids strong, and all hell breaks loose. At the end of the episode, Viserys is on death's doorstep, and he is talking to Alicent. This is unfortunately a lot of people are going to die from this mix-up. There's 2 kids named Aegon. At the end of the night, as Viserys is literally dying and doesn't make any sense, he thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra, but he's really talking to Alicent, and he says the name Aegon, and you must do this. Alicent wildly misinterprets this, and it kind of fucks everything up. She thinks that essentially her husband's dying wish is to put his son Aegon on the throne. So now we have episode 9 and 10. Episode 9 is called The Green Council. Episode 10 is called The Black Queen, and both take a fully focused look at what the Greens do in the aftermath of Viserys' death, and then what the Blacks do. In episode 9, we are focusing on Alicent's family on the Green side. What you need to know about this episode is Alicent and Otto, this is the first time we see them fracture. So Alicent has kind of been, told what to do, bossed around by her father, and has taken it on. And this is the first time she kind of fights back and accuses him of being a shit, using her as a pawn in a chess match to get their family ahead. And he basically says, you should be thanking me because I made you queen. Anyway, they both align on the end goal, which is to see Aegon on the throne and Rhaenyra out of power, but they have wildly different reasons and methods. For example, Alicent believes that it was Viserys' dying wish to put Aegon on the throne, but she still wishes for mercy for Rhaenyra and her kids. Otto, little rat Otto, reveals reveals that he's been at this plan for years, plotting to put Aegon on the throne, and also for over a decade even instructs Harold Westerling to basically go kill Rhaenyra and her children. Shit hits the fan fast. Any protests, anyone siding with Rhaenyra are swiftly shut down. Kristen Cole literally bashes the guy's head in at the small council, and there's no consequences for him ever. Meanwhile, Harold Westerling puts down his white cloak. He says his goal is to serve the ruler of Westeros, and there currently isn't one. They kind of hold everyone hostage, including Rhaenys, who is locked in her room. She kind of gives Alicent a serving of truth at this time, saying Alicent doesn't really have any powers when it matters. This is a man's game, and that all that Alicent is doing for herself is giving herself a window in her prison. So it's all a race between who can get to Aegon first. So Alicent wants to get to Aegon first to hopefully ask him to show Rhaenyra mercy. Otto wants to get to Aegon first so he can whisper in his ear. Anyway, Kristen and Aemond go searching for Aegon on behalf of Alicent. They're kind of a dynamic duo. Aemond secretly knows that he would be the better king. We learn that Aegon is a drunk, he's a rapist, he's a father of illegitimate children who he lets fight in the fighting pits. At the same time, on behalf of Otto, we have Eric, and I'll say Eric and Arik. Great job, George R.R. Martin. They are two brothers, two identical twins, both on the King's Guard, and they're dispatched from Otto to go find Aemond. It's kind of a rat race to see who will get there first. Eric sees who Aegon really is during this time and is pretty disgusted. This is where the two brothers splinter, as Eric will eventually just kind of be like, who is this guy? Why are we putting him on the throne? And decide to eventually go over to the side of the Blacks. Aegon is found in the Sept by the twins, which is kind of ironic because he's literally like the least godlike and holy person ever. There's a little bit of a tussle, and then eventually Kristen and Aemond kind of get him first. Otto and Alicent are splintering. Alicent realizes from Larys, who's still a creep, that Otto has a ring of spies. Larys says, of course, babe, and sends his tongueless fire dudes to blast Massaria, who's kind of the ringleader of the spy network, but we don't know if she dies or not. For so long, we haven't really known what Larys is motivated by until now. We realize that Homie has a foot fetish. He enjoys the power and the sight of Alicent's feet. He pleasures himself to her feet as she looks away in disgust. We get the idea that this is not the first nor the last time this will happen, and it unfortunately makes me wonder how young Alicent was when this first occurred. They do the coronation ceremony of Aegon. We see that Aegon is really reluctant to take the crown. He even told Aemond to let him go. He would disappear. He would be a drunk for the rest of his life. Then as soon as that asshole gets up, he wears the crown and he sees everyone cheering from him. He's like, all right, cool. Meanwhile, Eric, who is totally not okay with what he has seen, goes to free Rhaenys, who gets on her dragon and really F shit up during the crowning, blasting hundreds and hundreds of common folks to smithereens, yet refuses to kill the actual threat to the power dynamic and her family at large. Okay, last but not least, we have episode 10, which is the Black Queen. This is where we see how Rhaenyra's family reacts. The Targaryen household gets some bad news about Viserys when Rhaenys arrives, and everyone loses their mind. Daemon is immediately like, they killed him, what the fuck? Did you not see him last episode literally on death's doorstep? Daemon is ready for war, and Rhaenyra is unfortunately inconvenienced by her water breaking. We see a parallel of Daemon plotting. Daemon is very rash. Rhaenyra is horrifically fighting for her life in childbirth. Unfortunately results in the death of her baby. Rhaenyra and Daemon get into a bit of a power struggle, even seeing a bit of violence and aggression coming from Daemon toward Rhaenyra, which is really not cool of him, but the internet still loves him. Meanwhile, they have a very small crowning ceremony of their own. Eric shows up and swears allegiance, and then they discuss sending envoys to rally their allies. Otto the Rat shows up in a scene very reminiscent of the earlier scene, urging Rhaenyra to make peace. Daemon offers to cut off Otto's cock-a-doodle-doo and stuff it in his mouth. Rhaenyra says she really does want peace, right? She wants to find a peaceful way out of this. We learn here that she has really actually learned from her father. Corlys pledges his support to Rhaenyra. This is partly because Rhaenys sees that Rhaenyra truly does want peace, which is in sharp contrast to Daemon, who literally wants to burn it all to the ground. It's giving Dany. Meanwhile, we realize that the war that's to come is all about the dragons and who can control them and who has them. So blacks have an edge to the number of dragons, but the problem is a lot of the dragons are still quite small, where Aemond does have Vhagar, which is huge and probably the most experienced dragon of them all. Meanwhile, Daemon visits Vermithor, which is an existing kind of rogue dragon without a rider, and sings a dragon lullaby, because now it's all about how many dragons can get. Now they decide that they need to send envoys to go treat with the other houses. So they send Jace, the oldest, to the Vale, and then he's supposed to go to Winterfell. We don't see any of this occur. This is probably going to be right where season 2 picks up. I hope. It will be super cool to see Jace in Winterfell. Luke heads off to Storm's End to treat with the Baratheons, which is supposed to be the easier job and the closer job. Unfortunately, there's a new Baratheon on the throne. Elder Baratheon, the father, was the one who had sworn allegiance to Rhaenyra back in the day. Unfortunately, Aemond has also shown up there too. He has a bigger dragon, a bigger dick, and a better offer, which is marrying one of Boros Baratheon's daughters. We all know what happens next. Unfortunately, Luke tries to get out of there. Luke is like when you turn off the lights in the basement and you have to like run up really fast because you're really scared of the demons. So he's trying to nope the fuck out of there. Aemond has still not forgotten about his eye, which is understandable. It's understandable. And he really wants to kind of mess with Luke, scare Luke. Unfortunately, though, in this scene, we realize that dragons have a mind of their own, that dragons don't necessarily listen to the teenagers riding them. Arax, who is Luke's dragon, spits some fire at Vhagar, and Vhagar was having none of that. Not only was she maybe hungry and wanted a little snack, but the girl is 180 years old and she does not have time for any of this nonsense. So she just eats Arax and Luke. Aemond is shook and he's a smart kid. He seems to know immediately the consequences of what he has just done. Luke is dead. Aemond killed his nephew, and we all know that in the Game of Thrones universe, kingslaying is a horrible crime. Rhaenyra finds out and is pissed. She has had a bad fucking week. She just lost her dad, her baby, her kingdom, and now her son, and she is ready for blood. Okay, and that's where season 1 ends. I hope you enjoyed this recap. I'll stop here because it's getting quite long. I'm so excited for season 2. If you want to follow along with season 2 with me, comment below and I'll make videos for every episode. We have about a month, about 5 weeks until season 2 starts to come out. So give this a like, a comment, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It helps me out immensely, and I'll be back in your feeds very soon with my Dune Messiah book review. Take care, have a great day, and I will talk to you later.